I just touched base again after a long trip to beautiful Lisbon, hence my recent absence, and this trip did not go as planned. My main objective completely flopped, and instead I got something even better. Lisbon was meant to be a tattoo guest spot. Tattooers like myself since 2 years travel to another country and work in another studio for a short time to network, widen their horizon and client base, get a change of scenery, and escape the Canadian winter depression. But as you know, life very often doesn't go as planned. And I would like to give a little reality check about the current economy from my point of view, and at the same time philosophize a bit about rigidity and stubbornness in life in general. I have talked a few times already about balance and getting out of your comfort zone. I think that in the grand scheme of things, it's incredibly important to be flexible and to react to roadblocks in a fluid and open-minded manner. As I have said to a good friend the other day, even if your chosen career path is making you the absolutely most happy and you can't imagine doing anything else with your life, if today's economy has no need for more cameramen, then you alone will suffer the consequences of your stubbornness. It's important to acknowledge when things really don't work out and to pivot in order to be able to enjoy your life as a whole. And who knows, maybe your real passion lies in daycare and not in macrame, as crazy as that might sound right now. Yes, life is short, and ideally you do something that makes you happy. But is not getting any jobs, getting further and further into debt, moving back into your parents' basement, and still holding on to this ideal future that is just not happening, really making you happy in the end? That's a rhetorical question. And pivoting doesn't mean to throw a plan completely overboard. It just means to be flexible in order to live to fight another day on your chosen battlefield, as soon as you have healed all your wounds and stocked up on provisions. On my end of the tattoo industry, I can clearly see by now that it's time to pivot. Unfortunately, once again. The art world in general has seen as post-COVID times don't allow for luxury spending. And tattoos and pretty wall art are a luxury and not a necessity. We need to be very realistic about that. I very much hope that things will settle again at some point. After all, the pendulum of economy usually bounces back and forth, like the stock market shows so vividly. But for now, we need to see eye to eye with the reality we live in, and with the fact that at the moment, people struggle to pay their rent pretty much everywhere you look. So why would any one of those people spend a single cent on pretty prints instead of putting food into their mouths? That was another rhetorical question. Now let me share some very real numbers with you. I started advertising my guest trip to Portugal 17 days before I entered the plane. 2 of the 10 studios I wrote welcomed me to tattoo there, which I'm very grateful for. I paid 70 Canadian dollars in Instagram brews, which I know is not much, but I'm not a Rockefeller. I stayed a total of 46 days in Lisbon, and in the end I had exactly 0 appointments. And at first I thought I'm the problem. I mean, that's certainly possible. But as it just so happened, a good tattooer friend of mine did a guest trip to Lisbon at the same time. And she also just got one client who was someone she already knew. And she is an incredible artist and much more established in the industry than I am. So the problem might not actually be solely on my part. Yay. The picture of the freelancing tattoo artist that can work everywhere in the world and thus travels to Paris, London and Barcelona, settles in Bali for a year, and then goes back home for a bit to catch some breath before hitting Sao Paulo and Singapore is quite alluring, and for many it does work out. But it also might not, or just much later in your career. And from that we learn 2 life lessons. The first being that we should tame our expectations, which I don't want you to confuse with having aspirations. I think it's important to aim big, because unbelievable successes are born from equally insane dreams. Think Elon Musk. Like him or not for his political choices, he is a great example of a hint of insanity mixed with tenacity actually gone right. So far at least. But while shooting for the moon, we still should brace ourselves mentally and ideally also financially for failure. Because most people do not have the luck of going viral with their first video of a cat sneezing from ice cream. Most of us have to try and fail for a decade or longer before getting where they want to be in life. Remember that for every famous TikToker and every lottery winner and every tattoo artist sipping arak in Bali, there are thousands that tried the same but did not get the same result. It's much more likely that it will take a lot of time than that you will hit a jackpot on first try. So don't settle for a dream smaller than Mars colonization, but be realistic about the trip taking 9 months, and not just as long as sneaking to the nearest Späti for a midnight chocolate friend after a breakup. The second life lesson is that we should be flexible. I personally firmly believe that I was born to paint and tattoo, but right now is obviously not the time. Does that mean that I throw out my easel and machines? No, of course not. But it does mean that I have to be open to try on some new shoes. Or old shoes. Because I can't just sit around painting when my house is on fire. Art isn't going anywhere, but neither are my utility bills. Life is unpredictable and also quite unforgiving. And thus some pragmatism really doesn't hurt here. And the best thing is that adaptability is not only helping you with your career. With well-trained plasticity and resourcefulness in your toolbox, you are much better equipped for things like moving abroad, dealing with relationship issues, surviving unexpected financial troubles, staying sane, doing childcare, and you also might not resort to apathy when not finding your favorite dish on the menu as usual. It just strengthens your mental resilience overall. And with all the fast-paced change the world is going through, that resilience is direly needed. Now, all that being said, please don't give up on your dreams. If something feels right to you and it's not armed robbery, then you should pursue it. Just don't be rigid and acknowledge when some change is needed. Dealing with setbacks is disheartening, but it can also be a catalyst for immense growth. My fellow countryman Albert Einstein once said, "Insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results." Staying stubbornly persistent when an approach doesn't work out will just lead you to be stuck in a life you actually don't want. You have to pivot at some point to make change happen that, hopefully, at another time leads to where you want to go. Montrealers know very well that many roads lead to Rome, eventually. I'm also a firm believer that one should try out those new shoes every once in a while, even when things go well. Every input out of the ordinary sparks some new connections among your synapses, and you never know what you might gain from that. Now, to end this entry on a positive note, be also prepared for the unexpected in the positive. My main objective completely flopped, and instead I got something even better. While knocking on tattoo studio doors, I happened to knock on Lewis's from Black Symmetry as well. He couldn't offer me a guest spot since his studio is very private, and he asked me instead to join his workshop that would take place during my stay. I had to decline because that was unfortunately not in my budget. But lo and behold, when I had already arrived in Lisbon, he told me that his assistant had to cancel on short notice. And guess whom he asked to take his place? Moi. That was the most incredible gift anyone could have given me on this trip. And it makes up for the failing of my actual guest trip spot a million times over. Huge thanks to Lewis and a shout out to his work. You will find the link to his website in the description below. This goes to show that it's always good to have a focus in life, just as it is to stay flexible if need be. I know I repeat myself over and over again, but balance. And since versatility and adaptability cannot be honed without seeing your environment with ever open eyes, it's also important to always stay curious. Thanks for watching. Why would anyone put the echo high? Sounds crappy. A huge decline. Don't allow for luxury spending. Oh, almost. That was correct. Just do it. But edit. Deleting that is too much. People have no attention span anymore.